As a sales professional, you want to take advantage of every opportunity to get leads and close deals. You want to land business. One thing is certain, how you market your company has changed over the years. In fact, we all know this, the days of making a slew of phone calls or stopping by a potential client with some donuts and then getting results from all that may be a nostalgic memory. But there could be a solution to consider here to help you with your sales challenges, an angle that you haven't yet looked at. To dig into this, I welcome Ed Marsh, the founder and principal of Consilium Global Business Advisors. Ed, thanks for joining me today on Straight Talk.
Well, Jeff, you're a very gracious host. Thanks for having me back. I always enjoy our conversations.
I do as well. Let's get right into it and help our audience with what they need to get started. Can you speak to how outbound sales efforts have changed over the years and what that means for sales professionals right now?
Well, I think you defined it just using that phrase, the donut run. That just says so much about the way outbound sales have changed. It used to be when I started selling, I would drive around to the back of buildings. I'd go into an industrial park, drive to the back of the building, walk in through the loading dock, and at least get the name and contact details, and then be able to get somebody on the phone. If not, escorted up to their office to sit down and have a quick conversation. It doesn't happen now. And people talk about how you introduced to talking about how you want to do is close sales. Most of the salespeople I talk to now just want to get meetings. They're struggling so much to get meetings that becomes a major challenge. So if people's voicemail boxes are always full, and if their email is just completely outrageous, and most stuff never even gets opened or read, how do you reach folks? I mean, there's some kind of traditional referrals, there may be some networking, there may be some, certainly trade associations can be an effective sort of a route, but much of the traditional way that we sell is increasingly difficult. Doesn't mean it's not important, doesn't mean it can't work, but it works at lower percentages and requires much more refined technique.
Outbound marketing is just what we've always done, but inbound marketing is so nice, right? You have the content, some content marketing going on. People reach out to you, but there's tons of information out there now. Everyone's doing it, content marketing. What is a solution to deal with all that noise, and how do we get noticed?
So I wouldn't give up on content marketing, and all people have to do is look to you and your media operation for incredible inspiration. However, they need to be realistic. It's a ton of work. You and your team put a lot of work into it. You create a massive amount of content, and it's almost all great content. And it's created with a lot of very specific attention to the details that may not be readily apparent that make a difference in terms of getting found and getting clicked and getting engaged and keeping people coming back and watching the whole thing and all of that kind of stuff. You multi-purpose content really well. So don't give up on content. It remains important. On the other hand, it's not the land grab that it was 10 years ago, where if you just put a blog online, you could start to collect leads. Now people are so overwhelmed with information that, just like outbound sales, inbound marketing or content marketing is a little bit harder too. Can't walk away from it. It's still important. Content is a great tool for sales enablement. It supports the sales process. So there's a lot of reasons to keep doing it, because it also forces us to think from the customer perspective about how we help customers, the problems we solve, the way we influence the industry. And content forces us to have the discipline to do that. That being said, just like outbound sales, inbound marketing is trickier. So what's the answer? I don't know that there is any silver bullet, but there's some interesting trends that are going on in the tech industry that I think B2B industrial companies can look at. And one of them is really a trend that in the tech business they're calling nearbound. So we had outbound sales, then we had inbound marketing, and now we've got nearbound. And nearbound, in some ways, is new, and in some ways, it's right back to the stuff that we used to know before. I mean, the best sales lead is a referral. Somebody who the prospect knows and trusts says, hey, you ought to talk to this person. They've helped me in my business, or they've got some interesting ideas you ought to listen to. It doesn't sell the deal for you, but it gets you in the door with an imprimatur of credibility. It lets you sit down and have a meeting. That's the idea of nearbound. And nearbound is built on essentially the idea of partner marketing and partner sales. So every company ought to be able to identify others that are adjacent to them in their space, that have commercial relationships with the same target accounts and prospects that they want to reach, that have a non-competitive interest in collaborating to share information and reach people together. So I think that's a really interesting way that's starting to develop that companies have some decent opportunity with.
So would you recommend to locate or think about who those companies are that can you can work with, and then what, set up a lunch, meet with them, talk about your strategy?
Yeah, I mean, I first of all, I'd think really creatively about who those kinds of groups are, and then you're going to have really an ideal partner profile, just like you would an ideal customer profile. And I'd say that one of the important elements is going to be, are they philosophically aligned? Do they agree that this is an important way to go to market? Because if they're not into it, then you could put a ton of energy into trying to build a relationship and it's just not going to be fruitful. So define the attributes and the mindset of a potential partner that you think would be valuable, and then begin to cultivate it. Have a lunch, have a couple calls, try a couple activities together. Maybe you produce a joint downloadable guide. Maybe you do a webinar together. You get a sense, do people show up? Do they put the time in? Do they think creatively? Are they willing to commit energy and resources in some kind of a meaningful way to doing an experiment? Or is it all chitter chatter and no pitter patter?
Mhm. So in my mind, I'm thinking maybe a building service contractor and a
Mm-hmm.
pest control company, commercial pest control. That's what you're talking about.
Absolutely. Perfect. I mean, that's a great example. Maybe a roofing company, maybe a waste removal company. Those are all things that are around that building services sort of space.
So we have inbound marketing, outbound marketing, and now we have to learn about nearbound. Thanks, Ed,
Right.
for that.
Absolutely. There's never enough time to do all the work we need to, but markets and buyers are changing so quickly. We just have to be relentlessly impatient, not trying every shiny object, but certainly being open to sensible new approaches and seeing if we can incorporate them into our business practice.